Exodus 11. And the Lord said to Moses, I will touch Pharaoh and Egypt with one more plague, and after these things he will release you, and he will compel you to go out. Therefore, you will tell all the people to ask, a man of his friend, and a woman of her neighbor, for vessels of silver and of gold. Then the Lord will grant favor to his people in the sight of the Egyptians. And Moses was a very great man in the land of Egypt, in the sight of the servants of Pharaoh and of all the people. And he said, Thus says the Lord, in the middle of the night I will enter into Egypt. And every firstborn in the land of the Egyptians shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sits on his throne, even to the firstborn of the handmaid, who is at the millstone, and all the firstborn of the beasts of burden. And there will be a great outcry throughout the entire land of Egypt, such as has not been before, nor ever will be afterward. But among all the sons of Israel there shall not be even a mutter from a dog, from man, even to cattle, so that you may know how miraculously the Lord divides the Egyptians from Israel. And all these, your servants, shall descend to me and shall reverence me, by saying, Depart, you and all the people who are subject to you, after these things, we will depart. And he went out from Pharaoh exceedingly angry. Then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh will not listen to you, so that many signs may be accomplished in the land of Egypt. Now Moses and Aaron did all the wonders that are written, in the sight of Pharaoh. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, neither did he release the sons of Israel from his land. Exodus 12. The Lord also said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, This month will be for you the beginning of the months. It will be first in the month of the year. Speak to the entire assembly of the sons of Israel, and say to them, On the 10th day of this month, let everyone take a lamb, by their families and houses. But if the number is less than may suffice to be able to consume the lamb, he shall accept his neighbor, who has been joined with his house according to the number of souls that may suffice to be able to eat the lamb. And it shall be a lamb without blemish, a 1-year-old male. According to this rite, you shall also take a young goat. And you shall keep it until the 14th day of this month. And the entire multitude of the sons of Israel shall immolate it toward evening. And they shall take from its blood, and place it on both the doorposts and the upper threshold of the houses, in which they will consume it. And that night they shall eat the flesh, roasted by fire, and unleavened bread with wild lettuce. You shall not consume anything from it raw, nor boiled in water, but only roasted by fire. You shall devour the head with its feet and entrails. Neither shall there remain anything from it until morning. If anything will have been left over, you shall burn it with fire. Now you shall consume it in this way, you shall gird your waist, and you shall have shoes on your feet, holding staves in your hands, and you shall consume it in haste. For it is the Passover of the Lord. And I will cross through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from man, even to cattle. And I will bring judgments against all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. But the blood will be for you as a sign in the buildings where you will be. And I will see the blood, and I will pass over you. And the plague will not be with you to destroy, when I strike the land of Egypt. Then you shall have this day as a memorial, and you shall celebrate it as a solemnity to the Lord, in your generations, as an everlasting devotion. For 7 days, you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day there shall be no leaven in your houses. Whoever will consume anything leavened, from the first day, even until the 7th day, that soul shall perish from Israel. The first day shall be holy and solemn, and the 7th day shall be venerated with the same festivity. You shall do no work in these days, except that which pertains to the eating. And you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread. For on this same day, I will lead your army out of the land of Egypt, and you shall keep this day, in your generations, as a perpetual ritual. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, toward evening, you shall consume the unleavened bread, until the 21st day of the same month, toward evening. For 7 days, there shall not be found leaven in your houses. Whoever will eat leaven, his soul will perish from the assembly of Israel, as much with the newcomers as with the natives of the land. You shall not consume any leaven. In all your dwelling places, you shall eat unleavened bread. Then Moses called all the elders of the sons of Israel, and he said to them, Go, taking an animal by your families, and sacrifice the Passover. And dip a little bundle of hyssop in the blood which is at the entrance, and sprinkle the upper threshold with it, and both of the doorposts. Let none of you go out of the door of his house until morning. For the Lord will cross through, striking the Egyptians. And when he will see the blood on the upper threshold, and on both the doorposts, he will pass over the door of the house and not permit the striker to enter into your houses or to do harm. You shall keep this word as a law for you and for your sons, forever. And when you have entered into the land that the Lord will give to you, just as he has promised, you shall observe these ceremonies. And when your sons will say to you, What is the meaning of this religious observance? You shall say to them, It is the victim of the crossing of the Lord, when he passed over the houses of the sons of Israel in Egypt, striking the Egyptians, and freeing our houses, and the people, bowing down, worshipped. And the sons of Israel, departing, did just as the Lord had instructed Moses and Aaron. Then it happened, in the middle of the night, the Lord struck down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sits on his throne, even to the firstborn of the captive woman who was in prison, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, and all his servants, and all of Egypt. And there arose a great outcry in Egypt. For there was not a house in which no one lay dead. And Pharaoh, calling Moses and Aaron in the night, said, Rise up and go forth from among my people, you and the sons of Israel. Go, sacrifice to the Lord, just as you say. Your sheep and herds take along with you, as you requested, and as you go away, bless me. And the Egyptians urged the people to go away from the land quickly, saying, We will all die. Therefore, the people took bread dough before it was leavened. And tying it in their cloaks, they placed it on their shoulders. And the sons of Israel did just as Moses had instructed. And they petitioned the Egyptians for vessels of silver and of gold, and very many garments. Then the Lord granted favor to the people in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they bestowed on them. And they despoiled the Egyptians. And the sons of Israel set out from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides little ones. But also an innumerable mix of common people ascended with them, sheep and herds and animals of diverse kinds, exceedingly many. And they baked the bread, which a little while ago they had taken out of Egypt as dough. And they made unleavened bread baked under ashes. For it was not able to be leavened, with the Egyptians compelling them to leave and not permitting them to cause any delay. Neither did they have occasion to prepare any meat. Now the habitation of the sons of Israel, while they remained in Egypt, was 430 years. Having been completed, on the same day all the army of the Lord departed from the land of Egypt. This night is a worthy observance of the Lord, when he led him out of the land of Egypt. This all the sons of Israel must observe in their generations. And the Lord said to Moses and to Aaron, This is the religious observance of the Passover. No foreigner shall eat from it. But every bought servant shall be circumcised, and so he may eat from it. The newcomer and the hired hand shall not eat from it. In one house it shall be eaten, you shall not carry its flesh outside, nor shall you break its bone. The entire assembly of the sons of Israel shall do this. And if any sojourner will be willing to cross over into your settlement, and to keep the Passover of the Lord, all his males shall first be circumcised, and then he shall celebrate the rite. And he shall be just like a native of the land. But if any man is not circumcised, he shall not eat from it. The law shall be the same for the native-born and for the settler who sojourns with you." And all the sons of Israel did just as the Lord had instructed Moses and Aaron. And on the same day, the Lord led the sons of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their companies. Exodus 13. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Sanctify to me every firstborn which opens the womb among the sons of Israel, as much of men as of cattle. For they are all mine." And Moses said to the people, "Remember this day, on which you were taken away from Egypt and from the house of servitude. For with a strong hand the Lord has led you away from this place. Thus, you shall eat no leavened bread. Today, you go forth in the month of new grain. And when the Lord has brought you into the land of the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Amorite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, which he swore to your fathers that he would give to you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you will celebrate this manner of sacred rites in this month. For 7 days, you shall feed on unleavened bread. And on the 7th day, it will be the solemnity of the Lord. You shall consume unleavened bread for 7 days. There shall not be seen anything leavened with you, nor in all your parts. And you will explain to your son in that day, saying, 'This is what the Lord did for me when I was taken away from Egypt.' And it will be like a sign in your hand and like a memorial before your eyes. And so may the law of the Lord be always in your mouth. For with a strong hand, the Lord led you away from the land of Egypt. You will keep this observance, at the established time, from day to day. And when the Lord has brought you into the land of the Canaanite, just as he swore to you and to your fathers, and when he will give it you, then you shall set aside for the Lord all that opens the womb and all that is first to go forth among your cattle. Whatever you will have of the male sex, you shall consecrate to the Lord. The firstborn of a donkey you will exchange for a sheep. And if you will not redeem it, you shall put it to death. But every firstborn of man among your sons, you shall redeem with a price. And when your son will question you tomorrow, saying, 'What is this?' you will respond, 'With a strong hand the Lord led us away from the land of Egypt, from the house of servitude.' For when Pharaoh had been hardened and was unwilling to release us, the Lord killed every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of man, even to the firstborn of beasts. For this reason, I immolate to the Lord all of the male sex that opens the womb, and all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. Therefore, it will be like a sign in your hand and like something hanging between your eyes as a remembrance, because with a strong hand the Lord has led us away from Egypt." And so, when Pharaoh had sent the people away, God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, which is nearby, considering that perhaps they might relapse, if they saw wars rise up against them, and then they might return to Egypt. But he led them around by the way of the desert, which is next to the Red Sea. And so the sons of Israel ascended, armed, out of the land of Egypt. Also, Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, because he had sworn to the sons of Israel, saying, "God will visit you. Carry my bones away from here with you." And setting out from Succoth, they encamped at Etham, in the most distant parts of the wilderness. Now the Lord preceded them to show them the way, by day with a pillar of cloud, and by night with a pillar of fire, so that he might be the leader of their journey at both times. These never failed, a pillar of cloud by day, and a pillar of fire by night, in the sight of the people. Exodus 14. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel. Let them turn back and encamp away from the region of Pihahiroth, which is between Migdol and the sea, opposite Baal-zephon. In its sight you shall place your camp, above the sea. And Pharaoh will say about the sons of Israel, 'They have been confined by the land, the desert has enclosed them.' And I will harden his heart, and so he will pursue you. And I will be glorified in Pharaoh, and in all his army. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." And they did so. And it was reported to the king of the Egyptians that the people had fled. And the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was changed about the people, and they said, "What did we intend to do, so that we released Israel from serving us?" Therefore, he harnessed his chariot, and he took all his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots, and whatever chariots were in Egypt, and also the leaders of the whole army. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the sons of Israel. But they were taken away by an exalted hand. And when the Egyptians followed the footsteps of those who preceded them, they found them in a camp above the sea. All the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, and the entire army, were in Pihahiroth, opposite Baal-zephon. And when Pharaoh had drawn near, the sons of Israel, lifting up their eyes, saw the Egyptians behind them. And they were very afraid. And they cried out to the Lord. And they said to Moses, "Perhaps there were no graves in Egypt, for which reason you took us to die in the wilderness. What is it that you intended to do, in leading us out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we spoke to you in Egypt, saying, 'Withdraw from us, so that we may serve the Egyptians'? For it was much better to serve them, than to die in the wilderness." And Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the great wonders of the Lord, which he will do today. For the Egyptians, whom you now see, will never again be seen, forever. The Lord will fight on your behalf, and you will remain silent." And the Lord said to Moses, "Why cry out to me? Tell the sons of Israel to continue on. Now, lift up your staff, and extend your hand over the sea and divide it, so that the sons of Israel may walk through the midst of the sea on dry ground. Then I will harden the heart of the Egyptians, so as to pursue you. And I will be glorified in Pharaoh, and in all his army, and in his chariots, and in his horsemen. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, when I will be glorified in Pharaoh, and in his chariots, as well as in his horsemen." And the angel of God, who preceded the camp of Israel, lifting himself up, went behind them. And the pillar of cloud, together with him, left the front for the rear, and stood between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a dark cloud, yet it illuminated the night, so that they could not succeed at approaching one another at any time all that night. And when Moses had extended his hand over the sea, the Lord took it away by an intense burning wind, blowing throughout the night, and he turned it into dry ground. And the water was divided. And the sons of Israel went in through the midst of the dried sea. For the water was like a wall at their right hand and at their left hand. And the Egyptians, pursuing them, went in after them, along with all of the horses of Pharaoh, his chariots and horsemen, through the midst of the sea. And now the morning watch had arrived, and behold, the Lord, looking down upon the camp of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of cloud, put to death their army. And he overturned the wheels of the chariots, and they were carried into the deep. Therefore, the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from Israel. For the Lord fights on their behalf against us." And the Lord said to Moses, "Extend your hand over the sea, so that the waters may return on the Egyptians, over their chariots and horsemen." And when Moses had extended his hand opposite the sea, it was returned, at first light, to its former place. And the fleeing Egyptians met with the waters, and the Lord immersed them in the midst of the waves. And the waters were returned, and they covered the chariots and horsemen of the entire army of Pharaoh, who, in following, had entered into the sea. And not so much as one of them was left alive. But the sons of Israel continued directly through the midst of the dried sea, and the waters were to them like a wall on the right and on the left. And so the Lord freed Israel on that day from the hand of the Egyptians. And they saw the Egyptians dead on the shore of the sea and the great hand that the Lord had exercised against them. And the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in Moses his servant. Exodus 15. Then Moses and the sons of Israel sang this song to the Lord, and they said, "Let us sing to the Lord, for he has been gloriously magnified, the horse and the rider he has cast into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my praise, and he has become my salvation. He is my God, and I shall glorify him. He is the God of my father, and I shall exalt him. The Lord is like a fighting man. Almighty is his name. The chariot of Pharaoh, and his army, he has cast into the sea, his elect leaders have been submerged in the Red Sea. The abyss has covered them. They descended into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, has been magnified in strength. Your right hand, O Lord, has struck down the enemy. And in the multitude of your glory you have put down your adversaries. You sent out your wrath, which devoured them like stubble. And by the breath of your fury, the waters were gathered together. The flowing waves stood still. The abyss was gathered into the midst of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue and overtake them. I will divide the spoils. My soul will be filled. I will unsheathe my sword. My hand will put them to death. Your breath blew, and the sea covered them. They were submerged like lead into the mighty waters. Who is like you in strength, O Lord? Who is like you, magnificent in sanctity, terrible and yet praiseworthy, accomplishing miracles? You extended your hand, and the earth devoured them. In your mercy, you have been a leader to the people whom you have redeemed. And in your strength, you have carried them to your holy dwelling place. Peoples rose up and became angry. Sorrows took hold of the inhabitants of Philistia. Then the leaders of Edom were stirred up, and trembling took hold of the robust of Moab. All the inhabitants of Canaan were petrified. Let fear and dread fall upon them, by the magnitude of your arm. Let them become immobilized like stone, until your people cross through, O Lord, until this, your people whom you possess, cross through. You shall lead them in and plant them, on the mountain of your inheritance, in your most firm dwelling place, which you have formed, O Lord, your sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have made firm. The Lord will reign in eternity and beyond. For the rider Pharaoh, with his chariots and horsemen, was brought into the sea. And the Lord brought back upon them the waters of the sea. But the sons of Israel walked across dry ground in its midst. And so Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took up a timbrel in her hand. And all the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. And she prophesied, saying, Let us sing to the Lord, for he has been gloriously magnified. The horse and its rider, he has thrown into the sea. Then Moses took Israel from the Red Sea, and they went forth into the desert of Shur. And they wandered for 3 days through the wilderness, and they found no water. And they arrived at Marah. They were unable to drink the waters of Marah because they were bitter. Therefore, he also established a name befitting the place, calling it Marah, that is, bitterness. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? So he cried out to the Lord, who showed him a tree. And when he had cast it into the waters, they were turned into sweetness. In that place, he established instructions for him, and also judgments. And he tested him there, saying, If you will listen to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, and obey his commands, and keep all his precepts, I will not bring upon you any of the distress that I imposed on Egypt. For I am the Lord, your healer. Then the sons of Israel arrived in Elim, where there were 12 fountains of water and 70 palm trees. And they camped next to the waters. Thank you for watching. If you like the content on this channel, please press subscribe, the like button or comment below. We'd love to get your tips. See you next time.